say I'm going to teach you how to write ILOs. Would you say that you would be able to understand ILOs, know the importance of ILOs, appreciate how to write ILOs, or acquire skills in ILOs? Which one would you consider would be best? And the answer to that really is none of them. Because words like know, understand, be familiar with, appreciate, be aware of, these words cannot be measured. When writing intended learning outcomes, you must say how it will be assessed. The assessment process begins with having a clear and shared idea of what it is we're trying to measure. In many instances, this is the most difficult, but most important step in the process. The appropriate assessment measures become apparent after the intended learning outcomes are clearly described to the student. They need to construct meaning from them. Well-written outcomes are the engine that drives the assessment process. Keep in mind that there are many important outcomes that you might find difficult to describe, let alone measure. But an important outcome should not be abandoned simply because you cannot think of an easy way to measure it. What about this one? Identify intended learning outcomes that are SMART. Yes, it's certainly a strong verb when we look at identify. However, you're not able to construct meaning from this because it's not clear what it is you're going to do. What about this one? Identify intended learning outcomes that are SMART by selecting correct verbs on the cards given and rejecting unsuitable ones. Hopefully now you're able to construct meaning from what you're going to do, as it should be for your students in the classroom. They should start to construct meaning right at the beginning of the lesson. When you describe your intended learning outcomes to them, you will be describing their activity and how it will be measured. So each intended learning outcome is linked to assessment. But how do you write them? What words do you use? Bloom's taxonomy is a tool that can assist you to do this. Certainly not every verb is there, but it is a useful tool in getting you started. Bloom's taxonomy is in 6 stages, moving from the lower order thinking skills of knowledge, comprehension and application to the higher order thinking skills of analysis, synthesis and evaluation. Words used in the lower order thinking skills will stay in the student's short-term memory. Those used in the higher order thinking skills will stay in the student's long-term memory. In the knowledge section, the learning demonstrated here is recall of information. Perhaps they are recalling dates, events, places, etc. They should have a mastery of the subject matter. The knowledge. Verbs to use here would be students can list, define, tell, describe, identify, show, label, collect, examine, etc. Moving up to comprehension. At this stage you want students to understand information, but to grasp the meaning, maybe to translate the knowledge in a new context. Words here could be students can describe, interpret, contrast, predict, associate, distinguish, estimate, differentiate, discuss. Moving on up to application. Once you have taught it, they have the knowledge, they have the understanding, then can they use that? Can they use the concepts and theories in a new situation, solve problems? Words used here could be can students apply, demonstrate, complete, illustrate, show, do, relate, change, discover. Moving on up to analysis. In this category, things are more difficult. You're asking students then to analyse, to divide, to compare, to explain, etc. They'll see patterns. Moving into synthesis, verbs here used could be that students will rearrange, they will design, they will compose, they will rewrite. Hopefully you can see some patterns here. Moving on to evaluation, verbs here used, well, students will be able to assess, can grade, can test, can measure. You can see things are becoming more difficult, more challenging for the students. You can use Bloom's taxonomy also when you're questioning students to allow you to move up the taxonomy and create more challenge in the classroom. If I was to do another 2 intended learning outcomes with you, I would want to move you up the ladder. I might suggest as a second intended learning outcome that you would critique another, or no, perhaps you would produce intended learning outcomes for a lesson that you're going to deliver. and discuss with a colleague how students could construct meaning from them. And in using the word produce, it's moving you up to the application side. Then if I wanted to move you further up the ladder to critique, you might critique another colleague's intended learning outcomes, discuss their value with the whole group, maybe using teacher PowerPoint to aid your explanation. I would suggest that you go to Bloom's Taxonomy on the web and you start to use the verbs, print them out for yourself and use them. Use them also when you're questioning students to create more challenge. When you're planning a lesson, you must consider that all students are different and they learn differently. VARK stands for visual, auditory, reading and writing and kinesthetic, all different learning styles. Visual learners like lecturers who use gestures and picturesque language. They like pictures, videos, posters, slides, flowcharts. They like underlining. They like different colours. They love using highlighter. They like textbooks with diagrams and pictures.